And don't forget to order your copy of Football Game Plan's latest book, Stiff Arming Football Myths, an excellent book that you can find on our website at footballgameplan.com/books, available in both PDF as well as paperback form. Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bring you our 2014 NFL team preview for the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to take a look at their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams. So let's start on the offensive side of the football with the quarterback position. Matt Ryan dealt with the injuries last year around him and did an admirable job for the Atlanta Falcons. He threw for over 4,500 yards and 26 touchdowns. Now, with that said, you like to see him shave that interception number down from 17. And I must say, his situational football management skills improved tremendously last year, which bodes well for the future. The battle for number 2 is a little bit more interesting. TJ Yates, Sean Renfree, and undrafted rookie free agent Jeff Matthews will battle it out for the number 2 job. And in my opinion, Matthews is the best option. Coming out of Cornell, I compared him to Matt Ryan with a much stronger arm. So look for him to impress this preseason. The Falcons were the 32nd rated rushing attack last year, but in my opinion, it was more due to the offensive line and not the talent in the backfield. Entering his 11th season, Steven Jackson dealt with nagging injuries all year long, and the hope is that he still has enough left in the tank to be effective. His injuries allowed Jaquiz Rodgers to get additional touches starting 4 games last year. Rodgers is valuable on both ends of offense, and when you look in the 4th round this year, they drafted Devonta Freeman out of Florida State, who's a one-cut downhill runner with very good explosion. Like I've said before, the talent is definitely here, and with better offensive line play, the Falcons can get back to being one of the better rushing attacks in the league. You saw the value of Julio Jones once he went down with injury. The 3-year receiver was well on his way to his second 1,000-yard season before being lost in Week 5 for the rest of the year. His loss allowed Harry Douglas to emerge out of that 3rd wide receiver role into the number 2 spot, and Douglas put together his best season as a pro, catching 85 passes for over 1,000 yards. Jones and Douglas, along with Roddy White, who's entering his 10th season and is 100% healthy, gives the Falcons 3 competent receivers that can cause matchup problems. White should crack the 10,000-yard career mark this year with another solid season. In free agency, the Falcons added future Hall of Famer Devin Hester with plans of involving him in the offense. And I'd also keep an eye on undrafted rookie free agent Bernard Reedy out of Toledo, who's in the mold of Harry Douglas, and he'll compete with Darius Johnson for that 5th receiver spot. At tight end, gone is future Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez, and now it's the Levine Tololo show, and Tololo has the receiving skills to be effective, while guys like Bear Pasco and Mickey Schuler give you much more as a blocker. There's also undrafted rookie free agent Jacob Peterson out of Wisconsin, who was an excellent move tight end for the Badgers, and in my opinion, worthy of a spot. It just depends on whether or not the Falcons decide to keep either 3 or 4 tight ends this year. This is where the Falcons have to make tremendous strides in 2014. The offensive line struggled on both ends last year, and the hope is that new offensive line coach Mike Tice can make a difference. One new piece that could help, at least on one side, is rookie tackle Jake Matthews out of Texas A&M, who can play either tackle spot, but will more than likely play right tackle opposite of Sam Baker, whom the team hopes is at 100%. In free agency, they signed John Asamoah from the Kansas City Chiefs to start at guard, and Asamoah is a very good run blocker. You also look at Justin Blaylock. He mans the other guard spot and was one of the lone bright spots last year along that offensive line. Joe Hawley gets the nod at center after taking over for an ineffective Peter Kahns last season. Kahns and tackle Lamar Holmes are still young enough to improve, but right now will be decent depth guys along the offensive front. Undrafted rookie free agent center James Stone out of Tennessee also has a chance to surprise, as well as second-year players tackles Teron Jones and Ryan Schrader. The Falcons were 31st in run defense last year, and it could be due to a multitude of factors, but at the end of the day, it starts and ends with that defensive line. In free agency, the Falcons beefed up their run defense by signing Paul Soliai from the Miami Dolphins and Tyson Jackson from the Kansas City Chiefs to go along with Jonathan Babineau, giving Atlanta 3 guys that can either 2-gap or maintain and shed to make a play in the backfield. In the second round, they drafted Rashid Hageman out of Minnesota, who has a lot of Richard Seymour to his game. He'll see plenty of time in rotation along with second-year man Malachi Goodman, who's strong at the point of attack with long arms and understands how to play with leverage. You toss in Pariah Jerry and a healthy Corey Peters, and in my opinion, you'll see a vast improvement up front. Tough blow for the Atlanta Falcons, losing Sean Weatherspoon for the season. On the bright side, they played well without him for the majority of last year. Guys like Paul Warrilow and Jablu Bartu stepped up in a big way, combining for 233 tackles and 5.5 sacks. Warrilow actually led the team in tackles last season. They'll handle the inside linebacker spots. As for the outside, the Falcons have to improve on a pass rush that ranked 29th in the league in sacks, and the hope is that a healthy Corey Bierman, O.C. Umenyiora, who actually led the team in sacks last year with 7.5, and Jonathan Massaquoi can find ways to increase those numbers. Now, the Falcons do run a hybrid defense with the ability to switch back and forth from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which could allow for more pass rushers on the field. Guys like Ricky Tyler Starr out of South Dakota, who has the ability to drop back in coverage as well as rush the passer. Prince Shimbo out of Notre Dame, who's also stout versus the run, and Marquise Pereira out of Syracuse, who brings a lot of speed to the table. I'd also keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agent Roosevelt Nix from Kent State, a former defensive lineman, actually played defensive tackle, now moving to inside linebacker a la Lamar Whitley, and also has pass rushing skills. The team also signed Tim Dobbins and Pat Angerer, two veterans, to compete for time inside. I may be in a minority, but I actually like the Falcons secondary. Last year, the Falcons started two rookies at corner in Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford. Trufant started all 16 games, while Alford only started 4, but both guys ended up with 2 interceptions apiece while combining for 25 pass breakups. Josh Wilson was signed in the offseason to take over at nickel, while Robert McClain, Javier Arenas, and rookie 5th-round pick Ricardo Allen out of Purdue will jockey for dime duties. In my opinion, Allen gives them good instincts and ball skills, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him get moved ahead of those guys. At safety, William Moore is an outstanding player, a rare strong safety with the ability to cover. He'll be joined by free safety Dwight Lowry, who also has the ability to match up and cover in the slot. Now, in the 3rd round of the draft, they added Desmond Southward out of Wisconsin, who brings a lot of speed and acceleration and could see time in a big nickel look for the Falcons. And I also wouldn't count out last year's 7th-round pick Kamal Ishmael out of Central Florida, who has some of the same abilities as Lowry. The return game was bolstered in the offseason with the signing of Devin Hester. His addition gives the Falcons not only a scoring threat at kickoff and punt returner, but it also dictates how teams will kick to them. This was a big addition for practical and schematical reasons. The Falcons also boast 2 very good kickers, and kicker Matt Bryant, who was 8 out of 10 last year from 40+, and punter Matt Bosher, who averaged 46.6 yards a punt last season. The Falcons dealt with a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball last year, and now at full strength, along with some key additions on the offensive line and the defensive front 7, you can see the optimism and why they believe they can get back atop the NFC South. The cause for concern would have to be the offensive line. Have they done enough to help jumpstart their running game and keep Matt Ryan well protected in the pocket? To me, that's the biggest concern you have about the Falcons going into the season, more so than the linebacking core and their inability to get to the quarterback. The road to the Super Bowl for the Falcons goes as follows. Number 1, the offensive line has to make significant strides in the running game. They have to get back to running the football like they did a couple of seasons ago when they ran it against anybody. This offense has the potential to be a top 5 offense in the league if they're able to run the football, and that all falls on the offensive line. Number 2, defensive multiplicity causes havoc. I think that's how the Falcons can generate that pass rush. Remember, they have the personnel to flip-flop between the 4-3 and the 3-4. If they're able to get pressure on the quarterback, it's going to create opportunities on the back end for those ball hawks they have back there to make plays on the ball. And finally, Devin Hester impacts the football game, whether it be with how they don't kick it to him or whether or not he brings kicks back or punts back for touchdowns. If he can affect the football game each and every week, I think that bodes well for the Falcons getting into the playoffs and making some noise. I have the Falcons finishing 3rd in the NFC South. The passing game will once again be potent, and I believe defensively they'll be much more improved versus the run. I think overall they could push for a wild card spot if and only if that offensive line hits the ground running from week 1. But right now I have them finishing 3rd, with hovering around 8 or 9 wins. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Falcon fan forums for always showing football game plan support.